about the World Bank in Ghana?
Well, a very long history. I think essentially a very good history. But I recognize there have been a lot of times when our engagement has been under strong debate. I think in the last years, we have really seen a breakthrough for a new kind of engagement that leaves the adjustment phase behind and really is looking forward to a different kind of partnership. We have put $725 million online thanks to the Ghana Poverty Reduction Strategy. It was the document that realigned the way we engaged with the country. We have a different dialogue and we are building only on things that Ghana really wants to do, and we're putting money behind good things. That's the approach.
I see. Your new way of doing things, is it an admission that mistakes have been made in the past?
I would say yes, but I also would not want to trash the past in any simplistic way. You have to recall where Ghana was coming from when the economy had absolutely collapsed due to severe mismanagement and the military coups, and you were in a hole. And when you're in a hole, it is not easy to resolve a problem without pain. And we may not always have had the right answer, but you were also not in a great position. So it took a while, I think, before all of that was sorted out. And we've learned in the process. And I think now we are in a position to behave in a much more co-responsible way, is my hope.
Okay. Your engagement in Ghana is all about poverty reduction. How come the ordinary Ghanaian knows so very little about the things you do?
Well, our work was never primarily about public relations and getting our message out, so to speak. If you look about how the World Bank was created, it was more about giving governments a chance to have extra financing. And they would tell the story, they would do the thing, but we would be providing a little bit of extra funding. In that sense, we're maybe a little bit different from other development partners. But I take the point. We should be much better at sharing what we've been doing, because I think essentially it's a good story.
Now, water, health, education, energy. There's still a large number of Ghanaians out there who cannot have access to these very basic, social amenities. Even though the bank has been here for all of these years, does the bank really care?
Oh, unquestionably we care. This is what drives us. You wake up in the morning and you think about exactly these things. Now, these are responsibilities of the government vis-à-vis its people. And the bank is only a small part of the solution. But we try to be an important part of the solution because we're looking for the most difficult issues to solve. In other words, in health and education, government is paying the wages for people. But we try to come in with the resources that teachers need, or the material that health people need, or we try to address the difficult issues that the whole sector needs. So I think that in these three areas that you mentioned, water, health, and education, we are now in a much better position because we are addressing the sectors as a whole. And so it's never the question what the World Bank does for the sector. The question is, what is the nation doing about its needs here? And so the World Bank comes in with funding, with its experience, with its advice, but the government takes advice from all kinds of people to put together a whole package. And we are putting money in for the whole package and not for a particular segment that is the World Bank. And in all three areas, we have in the past year, 2 years now, done a lot. For water, 144 million. For education, 78 million. and roughly the same for health.
Energy.
And then energy. Energy has really come up as a big issue within our program. I had not expected that when I came here, but it quickly became apparent that solving the, well, let me use the word, structural issues around energy was critical, both to getting your macroeconomy safe, because your budget was bleeding support to energy in ways that created very little, and to reducing the cost of business, because business here is paying a lot for energy and they should be getting energy for lower cost like people. So both these sides, solving the budget problem and solving the cost problem or the reliability problem for business and consumers, were very much on our minds. And so I think the government has now been taking very bold steps to get rid of the petroleum subsidies in the budget, so that instead of subsidizing the consumption of petroleum, when the nation anyway is paying world market prices, government would be using its hard-earned tax receipts to do real poverty stuff, health, education, water, or indeed investing in energy access.
Yeah, but where these services are also being accessed by the poor who cannot pay, you just talked about cost. When you talk about cost recovery, okay, cost recovery also involves people who can't access some of these services. How do they fare? In health, cost recovery, we know about cash and carry, and the things is, the way is affected, health delivery in this country. We know about water, kidney worm diseases, are still available, are still very much in the system. Energy, rural electrification has happened, but many poor people still can't pay for the electricity they consume. So cost recovery, when you say cost recovery, how does that help?
I didn't say cost recovery.
Well, you talk
cost recovery is a term from, I think, an old discussion.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is that the World Bank wants to increase its funding to solve exactly these problems for poor people. That's where we are putting the money, okay?
Yeah.
The additional money we are putting into energy, water, health, or education, we want to be used exactly to help the people who are having the least access to these. So in other words, in health, we're putting in budget support so that expecting mothers do not have to pay fees when they deliver their children. We are putting in money into education so that girls who go to school will get extra funding to the school in order for the school to help the girls go there.
Yeah.
In water, we are giving communities 90% of the cost for a new point source, a new well, for example. That's what we are adding to it. And in energy, we are having now a project, but we're also preparing a new project that is all about subsidizing for the country access of poor people to energy. Now let me address then the issue of cost recovery, which is so associated with the World Bank's name. What you need in a country, if you want to stand on your own two legs, is utility companies. And they can be public. We don't have any problem with that. Public Ghana Water Company, a public electric company of Ghana. That's fine. But they should not be losing money, because if they lose money constantly, they die. And there's no viability. There's no independence, no sustainability. You want companies that are strong. But then they cannot lose, like the Electric Company of Ghana, 40% of their revenues. Or like Ghana Water Company, 50%. These are not strong public entities. You have a choice to what degree you want private sector experience or private sector investment in the sectors. We are very willing to work with various solutions. We might have thought in the past that one or other particular solution was better than the other. But I'm telling you now, we are willing to work with whatever solution you choose. But you will not succeed with a solution where these companies are not on a sound footing.
You're also supposed to be working in partnership with the government all of the time. Would you say it's a partnership of equals where each one gets a little bit of the pie?
I think that there is an inherent inequality in the donor relationship, which is very dangerous, but which is a part of real life. If you come with money, then obviously the word weighs a lot because people need the money. However, we have learned over the years that this money will never be used well, meaning for poverty reduction, unless you are really in agreement about what that money should be used for. And we have no other purpose than poverty reduction. None. Zero. So all we care about is to be convinced that if we add money to government's resources, that this money be put to good use.
So there's no hidden agenda.
There is no hidden
There's
agenda.
nothing in it at all for the World Bank.
There is nothing
Beyond
in it for
poverty
the World
reduction.
Bank. We look. You can look at how we are constructed, how our own internal reward system work, and they are all aligned only to one thing: whether or not our engagement leads to poverty reduction or not.
Okay. Talk about HIPC. HIPC lightens the debt burden of poorer countries, as well as it releases money for poverty reduction projects. Don't you think the name HIPC is a misnomer?
I think HIPC describes a reality: highly indebted poor countries, and Ghana is a highly indebted poor country.
Yeah, but if I'm a poor man, okay, I don't need anyone to tell me I'm a poor man. I accept it. Okay, but to come back and shove it into my nostrils and say you are poor and you need help, so take it. That's the point I'm making. It's not a negative. That's not antagonize the very people you want to help.
I think that the term HIPC in Ghana has become associated with disempowerment, and I accept that. But the whole point of HIPC is the reverse. We know that in the past we share part of the blame, all of us, for why Ghana, like so many other countries, ended up highly indebted. What we're trying to do is to create a kind of clean slate. That is the purpose of the debt cancellation embedded in HIPC. Now that you have completed that, HIPC is history. So, whatever are the associations with the term HIPC, I think you can safely say now that's part of the past. You have collected the debt relief that is embedded in HIPC, which is a 56% reduction in the debt burden on the country. The World Bank is cutting 2/3. It ensures that every year from now on, you will not have to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to your creditors, but you can use them for purposes that your parliament only decides, not us. So that is now achieved, and it's history.
So on hindsight, could you have used a better term than HIPC?
Oh, I'm sure. But sometimes you also have to face up to what is the reality. And the reality was that your country, like so many others, needed serious debt relief.
Corruption. How successful is the bank in combating corruption?
How successful is Ghana in combating corruption? It is not the bank that can replace what you do. It is Ghana. And I'm not thinking just of the president, but of course it starts with the president and the government and the internal mechanisms in government. But much more broadly than so. Media, communities, the judicial arm. These are the structures that fight corruption. We cannot fight corruption. We can only help you to some degree to strengthen these structures that do fight corruption. And in the past couple of years, we've helped with the new procurement law that should avoid waste and corruption, with the Financial Administration Act, with the Internal Audit Act, and we are working with communities on something we call social accountability to help strengthen that these links of accountability throughout society that ultimately have to do the job. How successful is all of this? We will see. Not by far as successful as I would have hoped.
Will Ghana ever stop depending on the World Bank?
Soon, I hope. I think that the World Bank way of engaging with the country can evolve so that what you experience is not dependence, but additionality. The term dependence comes from a period when the relationship between developing countries and their partners was quite tense and not enough positive was going on. So the development partners consistently felt they had to say, do this or do that, or I won't give you money. Let's leave that behind. And let's say that you decide that this is a viable development strategy. And you say, hey, World Bank, or hey, some other partner, can you align with us and walk with us for a period? We will then, as you focus on the right things, we will be funding this with you. After a while, when the growth rates take off, we will walk away.
But you need your job. The day Ghana stops depending or taking money from the World Bank means you don't have a job anymore in this country. Aren't you interested in keeping your job?
No, that's very fine.
I was asking about depending.
We will be celebrating. Unfortunately, if you think along those lines, there will be enough work in the future. The development challenges in the world are very serious, and they will need attention for decades to come. And even after serious poverty, the kind of poverty we measure by $1 a day, is gone, we will have $2 a day poverty or $4 a day poverty. Inequality will not go away quickly, and we will transform, is my vision for the future, to dealing not just with the extreme poverty issues, but also with global interdependence issues, the climate, pollution, economic interdependence, many other issues that bind us in the world. There is enough to do, how shall I put it, in the global public sector for us to not worry.
Okay. Some people have built a fortune on criticizing the bank. Why do you think is the case?
I don't want to criticize our critics. I think the critics are sometimes wrong, sometimes misinformed, and there may be one or two examples where people criticize us for really the wrong reasons or wrong motivations. But I think that we need to take criticism at face value. It's our responsibility to have clear responses when people bring out issues. And we learn in the process. Unquestionably, we change because of criticism. I've lived through that period. I can vouch for it, that is the inside of the story, that people are telling us A or B or C is wrong. We discuss it. Someone says, no, we're doing the right thing. And someone else internally said, yeah, but this is the point. And you change. This is normal, and it's sound, and it is fair, and I don't think that the critics are wrong to criticize. But I want a fair and respectful debate.
If, for example, we put together about, let's say, 50 million Ghanaians who are poor in rural Ghana, okay, we line them up in a crowd somewhere in a big park, and we say, go address them. What would you tell them from the bank's point of view?
I tell them that what you do yourselves is the key. That if you take care about essential things like how is government spending its money? Are you yourself learning from best practices? Are you, if you are a farmer, picking up new technology? That is where the core is. The core to solving the problem does not rest with the World Bank. We can come in with some money to help you move. We can bring some experience from countries that have succeeded elsewhere in Africa and the world. But ultimately, it is how you care about your country and how your government, your local government behaves that is going to transform the environment around you.
On the flip side, if we had the opportunity to address, politicians, including the president and local government people, what would you be telling them? People who are entrusted with the job of delivering services to the poor.
I would say, don't avoid the hard questions. Bring out the hard questions first and deliver on the easy stuff later. But the hard questions are always the ones that make it or break it, whether you go fast forward or only slowly.
So what are some of the issues your critics take you up on?
Well, we've had a big discussion in Ghana, for example, around the so-called privatization of water, which in fact is no privatization of water, except for the fact that poor people today buy their water from private vendors at many times the price of the public utility, which we are now trying to help strongly by putting in more than $100 million to help it deliver better for more people. This is the kind of discussion where I think some of our critics are working off of simple models that simply are not correct when you look at the reality. And I accept the concerns that motivate criticism, but I also think that we need to look at the realities of a case, and that perhaps also some of our critics needs to evolve in their approach. But by all means, they should be engaged in the debate, and I think that's ultimately very helpful.
So is the bank always right?
No, the bank is not always right and has not always been right. And we may not be right today either, which is why we need this discussion. But are we honest in terms of what we are putting on the table in terms of experience from elsewhere in the world and what we believe work? Absolutely. Are we giving government a chance to choose between various options? Why, of course. Your government is strong and will not do things with us that it won't want to do. And I will not allow us to get engaged on such a basis. So I think this is the change, perhaps, from the past, where any engagement today is only built on choice as expressed by government.
Yeah, I think that brings me to a point. Okay, one of the issues that critics take you up on is that because of your worldview on development issues, okay, you tend to rubber stamp, solutions without regard to local sensitivities and conditions and all that. Would they be right?
No, they will not be right. The bank does no longer, if it ever did, promote only one solution. In fact, what we hold ourselves to account now is pretty much the opposite. It is trying to get a relationship, a partnership is how we call it, where we bring forward experience across the world of how you can solve different problems. And if government chooses to a hard question and try to bring a response to it, and we feel that this is territory we can work in, then we will work with government. So it is turning exactly this around, which is what is motivating us today.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. Tumpani TV, healthy TV for you.
Yeah, for a reason, 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 yeah, for a reason.